year of work. The idea started in Glasgow. We had a side event on how different partners can work together for blending, what is missing on the agenda. And I know that time is very tight and we have so many partners and so many contributors who have been hand in hand with us throughout the process. And I want to thank all of them, and we'll do the thanks one by one. There's supposed to be a presentation that I'll go over very, very quickly so that those who have not been part of the guidebook get a gist of what is it that we've done together. And then I will ask President Alessina to give a keynote, followed by Prime Minister Blair, and then we will go over with the different partners. And then we have with us Professor Stern. I hope he can, and they just issued a very important expert report, and there's always complementarity that comes from one report to another. So it would be fantastic if you can also give us some insights into that. Without further ado, the objective of what we were doing is how can we increase quantity and quality of climate investment, translate commitments into implementable projects, and this is a top of implementation. A core question that inspired a series of discussions on the importance of bridging the climate finance gap and mobilizing resources to countries most in need. So over a year, there was a consultative and inclusive process with more than 100 different stakeholders, representing governments, development partners, multilateral development banks, commercial banks, private sector, philanthropy, think tanks, and civil society to underpin an ambitious and realistic actionable climate agenda rooted in the principles of justice and equality. I'm very happy that we're celebrating today another milestone for us, which is the launch of the Sharm El Sheikh Guidebook for Just Financing. It's an embodiment of multi-stakeholder engagement, one of the key aspects of our work in international cooperation. This guidebook emphasizes the need to scale up investments towards climate adaptation and mitigation projects, highlighting the importance of improved access to quality and quantity of climate finance that leaves no one behind. And it brings the idea of justice to climate finance, and it sets forward 12 guiding principles for just financing. And there's a QR code here on the screen that will come up in a little bit that has these guiding principles. But they are poured around 3 themes: country ownership, equitable pathways to climate finance, and governance structures. These principles serve as a framework to guide stakeholders to adapt innovative climate finance modalities, instruments that can unlock needed scale financing for both public and private capital providers. This is the QR code that has the 12 principles of just financing. And the guide also contributes to filling the information gap for both national governments, investors, to reduce the risk and uncertainty associated with climate investments. It also identifies key barriers to private investment and proposes solutions to overcome them, including through innovative financing models. And here we have details on blended finance, carbon credits, and resilience credits. More importantly, the guidebook addresses the limited access of developing countries to climate funds, and thus provides a mapping of capital providers based on their access criteria, their risk appetite, regional and sectoral focus, the ticket size, and financing instruments. So this is another important contribution from the guidebook. It also presents a set of 48 successful case studies that provide insights into the different ways that public and private sources of capital can engage in efficient structures for good outcomes. These case studies span across different geographic regions, country income levels, and this is another important contribution. They actively address climate-related challenges and propose solutions in both adaptation and mitigation. And we keep on emphasizing adaptation because this is an adaptation top or a focus of this COP. And we also explain how blended and unblended instruments and approaches can be replicated in other countries, particularly on the adaptation side. The guidebook concludes with key recommendations and actionable agenda for each stakeholder that lists the roles they could play to achieve just financing outcomes and maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of existing climate finance systems in the short run, while rethinking international architecture in the medium and long run. And there's a QR code that also has information on the actionable agenda going forward. As I conclude my remarks, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all the partners who spared no effort in providing valuable insights and feedback to bring to life this unique guidebook. These are several logos, and behind these logos are teams that work together for implementation. We have laid the foundations and created a dynamic and living document. This is not the end. There's always going to be, within the next 12 months, more that we will learn. And this will be updated to account for global changes and incorporate more implementable projects in other regions. Time is quite tight, so we are going to be as fast as possible so that we can benefit from everyone's presence. There are going to be cards that have QR codes for the whole guidebook. This is what it looks like. And we will be sending everybody copies as well once we finish from Sharm El Sheikh. Now let me introduce President Aksina. African Development Bank has been a partner with Egypt over the past year on many topics. You have been talking about adaptation. Yesterday we attended adaptation acceleration program that the African Development Bank is doing with the Global Adaptation Center. So please, your comment.
Thank you very much, Minister Mariam. Let me congratulate you and your team for incredible work that you've done in putting together this Sharm El Sheikh guide. It's not a lot of, it's a difficult work to do, but congratulations. And we at the African Development Bank applaud you and applaud this guide. Why do we do it? Because we are talking about just finance. But what the world needs for developing countries, they don't need sympathy. They don't simply need financing to be able to tackle the gargantuan challenges that they have in terms of adapting to climate change. So I'll speak just quickly in the case of Africa. You know, just to adapt to climate change, Africa will need roughly about $1.5 billion a year by 2030. If you look at how much Africa actually gets there, it gets $18 billion total in terms of climate finance, and only $11 billion in terms of adaptation finance. So you look at the climate financing gap for adaptation of $114 billion in total. The issue is what's being done about it. And we at African Development Bank, we prioritize two major actions. We're just talking about them. One is a program called African Adaptation Acceleration Program to mobilize $25 billion for climate adaptation for Africa. It's the largest effort in Africa and the largest globally on adaptation for Africa. And we're working on that with Global Center on Adaptation. The second one is we are in the replenishment process of the African Development Fund, which is the concessional arm of the African Development Bank. But when we talk about adaptation financing, we shouldn't really be asking poor countries to take more loans to adapt to climate change problem that it didn't cause. Even for the entire MPB system, 95% of everything we're doing is really on loans, right? Only 5% of it is on concessional financing. So what we need to do is actually provide more grants to countries, and that's why the replenishment of the African Development Bank area sustainable is critical, because that will raise up to $13 billion for these low-income countries to be able to adapt to climate change. Now, but as we do that, we also know that the private sector must play a very important role. And in playing that role, we have to de-risk a lot of the efforts in private sector. I take a look at Africa. We have $2.1 trillion of assets under management. But if we are able just to get 10% of that to go into climate resilient infrastructure, green infrastructure, we'll solve all the problems with regard to upgrading our infrastructure space. The other thing is green financing. Today, Africa accounts for just $2 billion out of the $623 billion annually in global finance in terms of green bonds. So what we need to do is be smart in leveraging a lot of the green bonds to finance most of the things that we are talking about. And just to close, I want to say that at the end of the day, if we're talking about just financing, then there has to be trust to be built. As long as developed countries do not pay up the $100 billion that they say they will pay for developing countries, it just seems to be a lot of megawatts on top and very little delivery on that. And we must make sure that that actually gets done. That's how you build trust. If you do that, then developed countries will say, okay, yeah, we know what it takes to be able to adapt. So I think just transition requires that whatever is promised is also delivered. Congratulations on the work. It shows the roadmap of what needs to be done, but what we now need is action to deliver on what's been promised. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Adesina. Now I go to Prime Minister Blair. And we met in Singapore last November. We were just discussing at the time from Glasgow to Sharm El Sheikh, and you have the Tony Blair Center for which focuses on African countries, and you helped us tremendously in looking into the ideas from non-state actors when it comes to just financing.
So, 3 points to make. First of all, Dr. Rana, congratulations to you and all your team. Those of us who put on Summit know how tough it is, and I think you've done an excellent job, and thank you so much for your leadership. And we have been delighted to be part of it. The first point I want to make is that the actual process of putting this guidebook together has been important. There's been something like 40 non-state actors involved in it. There's been a lot of wide consultation. I love when I'm going around, I'm seeing these phrases like implementation and solutions. But that's all that must be bitten from this debate. So the process has been a very collaborative one, and it's been very focused on the types of things that President Adesina has just been talking about. So the second thing is, this guidebook's worth studying. A lot of what comes out of conferences, if you're in government, but this is an actual guidebook with practical information and advice. Whether you're in government, where you've got to make changes in order to be able to absorb whatever help will come to you, whether you're someone in the private sector who looks to play your part in financing these projects, when one of the international financial institutions, and you're looking as to how you use your capital most, and also, I just continue. Okay. You can guess the rest. But the important thing about this guidebook is that it should be studied, and as Ronnie has just said, should be built on in the next year. So the second point is, this is practical. This is about real solutions that people can deliver, whether they're in the private sector, or indeed, or in government, or working on the recording studio side. So the third point, however, is just to say a special word of congratulations on the WEFI itself. So it's one thing is to write the book, it's another thing actually to do it. The WEFI is an attempt to do it. It links together the energy, the water, the food. Very important to see all of them as one seamless part of the challenge that we face. So the final thing I want to say is congratulations on WEFI. You've made announcements already, you're going to make some more, but more important, there's action happening. And my reflection is that what we actually want now is not strong words and weak actions, we want strong actions, and you showed the way it can be done. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Let me go now to Ambrios Feol, Vice President of the European Investment Bank, and they had the role this year of leading MDBs, particularly with EBRD on the climate action. Feol, we had so many discussions on the guidebook over the past months. Please go on.
Thank you very much, Mr. And start by telling you I'm really impressed by what has been achieved. I'm really impressed by your dedication to this. You have always been pushing us. We had some doubts about where we would go, and I think at the end it comes to something that is really a reference book that is going to be very helpful, and that is, as Prime Minister was saying, very concrete. So that's I think why we would very much welcome the guidebook. In terms of MDBs and EDAB, this year shared the the group of multilateral development banks. What I would say is we are doing two kinds of things. One is still volumes of financing. And we have published a few weeks ago the climate finance reports that shows the amount of finance that we do for development and what for development in climate finance. And what it shows is that the figures are really increasing. We were at a total of more than 60 billion euros for the low and middle income countries, coming from much lower figure. And actually for a good part it was adaptation, majority of it was adaptation. And altogether, if we include the high income countries, it is 82 billion euros in 2021 for all the NDBs. So these are figures that are not only big, but they are also increasing. It's not enough. But we are, I would say, on the right track. And the second thing that we do, because NDB support goes well beyond financing, is that we are supporting policy reforms and implement regulatory frameworks. We are trying to work to enhance project quality and sustainability. And we are also unlocking available finance and financial barriers that needs to be a lead, especially through the risk sharing instruments, these kind of things. Now, what we also work on is coordination, and actually coordination not only among ourselves, but also coordination to use more innovative, more collaborative financial structures. The Just Energy Transition Partnerships is one example of that. But also, actually, the Prime Minister said, indeed, what happened yesterday was very impressive in terms of collaboration with the private sector, with the philanthropy, with all the NGOs, and I think this is the proof that things are moving in terms of mobilization. So congratulations, and now we have to deliver.
So the World Bank, Egypt, just we launched together our country climate development report, the CCDRs, and the World Bank has played a very important role with us on the guidebook as well. Axel, please.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to the guidebook. I think it's something we have said it is a book for our reading, but most important is there is a need for a concrete follow-up, and ultimately, when it's about financing, we need to come to with financing now and not somewhere in the distant future. I think we have been scaling up massively our climate financing. Last year was 32 billion, but if I look at Africa, we are providing for the whole African continent around $34 billion. My expectation is to 2030 we will put another $250 billion into Africa, of which probably up to $100 billion climate financing, and half will have to be adaptation. We're already at the 50-50 level distribution that will need to be maintained and expanded. I think one of the big challenges is to have many more actors in there, because in Africa it's not only the climate change, but also that we are facilitating the energy access. Only 40% have access to energy. So I think we need to see how we can mobilize much more aggressively the private sector in this regard, and then make a difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for being just in your time. And well, IFC, private sector engagements, we talk about blended finance. It's trying to draw in more private sector for the climate solutions. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ronya. I'd also like to join the others in congratulating you on this event, and also thanking you for your leadership in the need to bear. So, at the International Finance Corporation, we know that mobilizing private capital is necessary to invest at the scale required to address climate change in Africa. And private capital can only be deployed into investable projects. This requires a deep dive analysis on how to make climate projects in Africa attractive to private investors. As mentioned in chapter 6 of the guidebook, which I did read, there is a need to establish a framework to advance climate financing on the African continent. And we can do this through blended finance vehicles. Blended finance can mobilize private capital into impactful investment opportunities for projects with a commercial revenue model
for a low market risk return profile. Blended finance is used to lower the risk of investment and to reduce coordination and transaction costs. IFC will continue to play a leading role in developing and upholding high standards as an implementing entity of blended finance resources. IFC and other DFIs have developed enhanced principles for blended concessional finance, which provide legal guidelines to manage the use of concessional funds for IFC. The role of IFC and other MPVs is key to continuing helping governments across the continent with policy amendments and reforms that can drive climate investments, as well as providing technical assistance support to government and the private sector on how best to tackle and navigate climate issues, new markets, and ensure profitability of private investments, as well as positive impacts on the continent. So with that, thank you again, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Dr. Khanda, the UNDP helped tremendously within the guidebook to take a look at the enabling environment, particularly at the national level. And we know that UNDP is doing a lot to help countries formulate their NDCs.
Thank you very much. And let me start by congratulating you for this financing work. It's a very milestone and already a successful outcome of this work. So congratulations for your vision. When we talk about the NDP, it's true I cannot compete with the financial institutions in here, but we cover 140 countries and we're supporting our NDCs, and our investment portfolio, if you can call it like that, is around 3 billion only on climate change. So the other side of the here is so this is what I wanted to say. On the guidebook, I think it's a major breakthrough, because we have heard of the need to have more access to financing years, but we also have heard that the financing is there. So there is a gap there, and from my point of view, also being pragmatic, I think this guidebook will help us to jump and to fill the gap between the needs and the existing resources to match between supply and demand. I think this is a very important point. We in UNDP, and we have the pleasure today to launch a new facility with the President of the Islamic Development Bank, and we have been discussing with the IB, etc., other partners with the World Bank. We are leading a new initiative which is called the Green State Facility for Transition, exactly for this purpose, and we want to have translation of the NDCs into implementation and into investment plan. One of the business lines that we want to open is to help countries to develop bankable and investable projects. So with that, I'm sure that it will be a success, and we can talk about it next year, 28. I'm sure you will have already heard a lot of fruits and congratulations for everything you're doing. So, thank you.
Before I conclude the first segment with Jay, I would like to invite Mr. James Jan, and Anita was very keen to be part of the guidebook, particularly on the international investment agreements, because this also defines how countries, when they come to projects, the climate comes into different agreements.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. ANCA is very much proud to be partner with your ministry and your leadership to contribute to the guidebook. Congratulations for having this wonderful guidebook. It's not only for financing, but also for investing and talking about upstream and also downstream of the investment chain. In a sense, it's a guidebook. It's very timely as we see that investment policy making is at the crossroad. Just to give you an example of international investment regime, there is no multilateral investment system like WTO for trade, but its international investment regime consists of 3,400 investment treaties, including bilateral, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral levels. And out of this 3,400, 2,900 treaties were concluded before 2010. And if you do a search, as we have the database, all these treaties hardly mention the word sustainable development, not to mention climate change. So, and there's also investor-state dispute mechanisms that will prevent or constrain governments to update their regulations regarding to climate change emissions. So at the national level, we have done a survey, as over 50% of the countries do not have the investment strategies in climate change, built-in climate strategies. So there's a need for double embedding the investment strategies in the climate change strategy and vice versa. So there's a daunting task, and the guidebook provides the concrete guidance for us as international organizations helping countries modernize their national laws and regulations and reform international investment regimes. So it is timely and it's important to do that. That's very helpful. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I wish also to take the opportunity, Minister, to congratulate you for the number of agreements that have concluded with international institutions to support Egypt country platform for water, food, and energy access. That's a great achievement, very concrete achievement that we have observed, and we are committed to help with the follow-up and implementation through technical assistance with the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me end the first contributors with Jay Collins. Jay Collins has been instruments, the private sector in this guidebook. We wanted governments, think tanks, private sector, and the next segment we'll hear from the philanthropies that were also part of the guidebook. Jay, go ahead.
Thank you, Minister. First, everyone's blended together here, Mwefi and the guidebook. Let me start by saying Mwefi represents a message to the G77 that ambition counts. Egypt wasn't part of the country program of the G7 and Gen P. It simply showed ambition, and the money came. So ambition begets funding. Second is projects. Mwefi is project-based. It starts with projects that then can look for technical assistance to move them forward, mobilization money, and then crowd the private sector into them. Third is this entire process requires mobilization, and the way to mobilize by project is to have a conductor. And Minister Rania and the government of Egypt have shown the world that actually, if you ask IFID to play one role, and EIB another, EBRD another, and IFC another, across the board, within the cones of Mwefi, within individual projects, we had extraordinary speed. Why? Because if you don't have a conductor, you have an orchestra that's cacophony and chaos. Instead, there was discipline around the projects, missions of the official community, and then a crowding into the private sector. So that's why we had speed. Capacity. Minister Rania and I sat in a room, over a year ago, and we talked about the fact that everybody's been talking about blended finance since Addis Ababa at a 50,000-foot level, and it's not working. And I said that to really get into the trenches, you talk at it as a banker at 1,000 feet, and it's very hard to understand. And Minister Rania said, no, we're going to do this at 5,000 feet. This book is a technical guidebook at that level, the best in the world, for official leaders in the community. I just shared it and went through the key points of it with the UNFCCC negotiators yesterday for a few hours as they look at the next collective quantified goal. That methodology and that process, well, there's a lot in here to learn from that. So again, this is capacity building. It's the role that the COP presidency aspired to in emerging markets, and we just have to thank you, Minister Rania, for yours and your team's extraordinary effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, this concludes this section, so I will just ask all our honorable guests to leave the stage and call on the next speakers. Okay, several experts also on the guidebook. We have with us Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, and the IMF is playing an important role in also in data finance when it comes to the RST and using SDRs. Please go ahead.
Also want to congratulations. From that, we are also working very hard on how to help and support our members in this fight against things. And in particular, climate finance. Sorry, maybe I can change to a different we just launched our new long-term facility, RST. It's a 20-year long-term loan with a 10.5-year grace period. It's the first long-term instrument in the history of IMF. And we created this instrument in order to support our members to deal with this long-term challenge of climate change. The demand has been very strong. We have signed 4 staff agreements. The latest one is Bangladesh, we announced today. And in addition to Rwanda, Costa Rica, and Barbados. So we have signed 4 agreements so far. And we have got pledge from 60 members in terms of contribution. So right now we have a pledge of total $20 million. And there will be more coming. Our goal eventually will be $100 million for recycling the SDRs that we distributed last year. More importantly, we want our facility to play a catalytic role to leverage our program to attract more public and private capital to support our members. So we do this in several ways. One thing we do is, in addition to give the money to our members, we want to support our members to implement policy reform so that they can attract more public and private capital in climate finance. For example, we support our members to develop their public financial management system so that they can have an enabling environment for public and private capital to come in. For another example, we can support our members to develop a legal framework to issue green bonds. These are just the kind of reforms that we can support. In addition, we work on our members when we create our program to put, including our conditionality, to design ways, both national and regional ways, to draw in private capital with our money. And we are going to work with our members and also LPs and private investors to create innovative vehicles to draw in private capital. And I stop here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Harney, you've been with us in this journey for some time. You present a lot of private sector, a lot of private money. And in the guidebook, we're trying to show how different capital providers can be part of this, and what governments need to do, and what are the ticket sizes.
Well, thank you. It was very formal now, Dr. Al-Shah. Your Excellency, Minister, we're friends with this. And we become friends because the amount of effort has gone into this. And let me just make a couple of very quick points. First off, the group that I'm up here representing, Jay Collins, others, very much the living active members of this. GFAD, what are you doing? We're trying to, what we are doing is we're building commitments, tools and markets in order to help the world get to net zero, to help the finance to net zero. And there's an active aspect there. So the commitments continue to build, the tools are being defined, new markets are being created. And the second point is that what we recognize in a situation like this, and you have at the heart of the guidebook, and a living example of an weapon, is the need for an integrated approach. First and foremost, within the country, obviously has to be led by the country fundamental, and I thought it was explained well. You didn't wait for the G7. Don't wait for the G7. That's a good piece of advice. It's good if they show up with money and being constructive, but don't wait for the G7. Because private capital is not going to wait for the G7. There's a number of multilateral organizations, including on the stage in the first one, who aren't waiting for construction, but are getting the strategies moving on. So driven by the country, but an integrated approach that gives life to the phrase just transition. Let me make a point in general with some of these markets are developed, and I'm going to come back to integration in a second, which is that when we think about additionality, think about things that would happen. Like I can look at a solar project in Egypt with a spreadsheet and say, this is going to give me a commercial return, and therefore there's no additionality there. That's wrong. That would, you know it, but I'm going to say for those who make me a little less familiar, that's not going to happen in the next decade unless there's changes to gas, unless you have the other component, unless there's elements of just transition, unless there's water enabling environment performance. It's all linked and therefore additional. It needs to be seen as a whole. That's relevant, by the way, when we think about how we develop carbon markets, carbon credit markets, additionality could be a key component, and its approach needs to take more part. So integrated, I could go on, but I won't within the country, but that's one example. The second thing, and you see it here in the comments, integrated across all sources of capital, and the blending of finance, comparative advantage of different forms of capital. Let me make two last points. This, as it was said, 5,000 feet, I like that analogy. It's a practitioner's job. It's a practitioner's job. Now, I can make a suggestion in that respect. I don't want to add to work, but I want to add to impact. Is as this guide is implemented, let's populate those QR codes with some case studies which show how to do to give life so that others can learn. Because I'll go back to the purpose of GFAC, the purpose of what we're doing, which is building, creating, developing, extending, creating fair market. Last thing I'll say, which is a lesson I think for everyone here, there's an expression, fortune favors the bold, well, finance favors the ambitious in terms of addressing climate change. What you've taken on here with the guide is ambitious. It's great if you get the result that's going to have a huge impact on the course. And looking at applications of the web, is exactly that.
Thank you very much, Mark. Next, there's 500 public development banks with financing commons, another important contributor to finance.
Thanks a lot, Minister. And let me first thank you for the invitation. And well, everybody measures how concrete your field, the case studies, and so true you are. Providing yesterday and today these two pieces that helps the discussion for the whole COP, and especially for this final thing, which I see, I feel extremely promising, and thanks also for the inclusiveness in the preparation of this guide. Actually, I had exactly the same points as Mark. So the first one is to stress the importance of country ownership, as the guidebook is making it extremely clear. We see, of course, the question of sovereignty louder and louder. We know that we have to combine the sovereignties with multilateralism that is at risk, including G7. And for that, we need to embark as many institutions as possible. Yes, this is the idea from day one of this financing partner initiative. There are 520 public development banks around all over the place. You can look at the fantastic database that is online, refreshed year after year. Not to promote public banks, but really for you to challenge this group and to make the best use of it. We gathered in Abidjan 2 weeks before COP27. EIB Ambroise was there, and the African Development Bank, was there as well, hosted. So NTBs are considering their fellow institutions. And I think it's important both on the supply side to innovate, but also on the demand side, because we have to originate way more projects than we are doing today. And my second comment is on this integrated approach. It's also clearly stated in Nick and Vera's report that was launched yesterday at CRR, also in the room. So this invitation to see all of us as a system, and maybe from our discussion having forward approach. I'm very sure that I think if we want to move forward in this talk, we have to more clearly distinguish what nobody will ever finance. So we need a lot of financing for solidarity, for adaptation, for loss and damage, to create trust enough in the negotiation, to open the other discussion, how much are we going to allocate of concessional resources to mobilize private finance. And we need, as public banks, that guidance way more clearly than we have today in order to do billions for solidarity and to do trillions for SDGs and for mitigation. And we have a unique occasion now that funds exists, NGFS for central bankers and regulators, and finance in common, to have the three components of the financial system, to have a dialogue at a more strategic level, and then of course come back to case studies.
Thank you so much. You mentioned the supply is there, and there's demand from the countries, and the guidebook is trying to find out why there's this supply and demand are not matching. That's where Mark comes in, because EBRD helps bring the supply and the demand together through projects.
Said, we all understand the scale of the challenge, the need to move beyond high level conceptual conversations to real practical implementation. The guidebook, and congratulations on the guidebook, is a really practical contribution to that, to make setting up all the key elements. And just like others, in terms of the challenge of matching the supply and demand, the challenge of delivering the transformation at the scale that we need, it requires a comprehensive country-led approach. All the different elements need to fall in place, and that's a combination of the political ambition, the policy framework, the technical assistance, the project preparation, and of course the financing, which is the combination of grant financing where it's needed, MDB financing, private financing. All of those elements need to be in place for us to deliver the transformation that is needed. And as others have said, the guidebook is a great contribution. The NOEFI program, the energy pillar in particular, is a fantastic example of this. The EBRD we've been very proud to be involved in terms of how the energy pillar, and it will demonstrate this. It will bring great benefits and opportunities to Egypt, but also we hope will be a very practical example of other countries.
Thank you very much, Mark. And Hiroshi Miga provides guarantees for private sector engagement in different projects, including climate. So,
well, thank you, Minister. First of all, congratulations in this event. As you kindly mentioned, Miga has a unique role within the World Bank Group. It provides guarantees, and it means that we need partners to do our business. So we need partners like EBRD, we need governments, IFC, we need private sector partners like Citi. We only can function with partners. Also what we want to do is really to do a programmatic approach. Not a one-off deal, but do a lot of similar projects so that we can make a best effort of what we're doing. So in that sense, this guide is actually very helpful in having all these various parties come together, having the same kind of way of thinking, and that really saves us a lot of time. I just want
using this guidebook, what we foresee is that we'll be able to bring more private sector money into the emerging markets, and I think that's the aim of our whole exercise. But anyway, congratulations again for this magnificent achievement.
Thank you very much. This morning there was a session talking about the missing P, and that was philanthropy. I said it should be the prominent P. So Robert Filler Foundation, please Elizabeth, go ahead and tell us about philanthropy, because a very important contributor and agent of change in the climate finance world.
And thank you so much, and thank you for changing us from missing to mighty, or I think we'll find the right adjective. But thank you so much for having us here.
Okay. PE is one of my favorite words, so prominent.
Excellent, we'll take it. Well, thank you so much, and I just also wanted to congratulate you personally on this talk and focus on implementation, because I think just on a personal level, seeing the enthusiasm and seeing also just the number of people actually implementing solutions is what I think we all obviously need to try in order to keep global warming to below 3 degrees and really at 1.5. One of the things that we've been working on for a long time, the foundation's been around for almost 110 years, and one of the things that we did very early on is really help invent. We try to push the frontiers forward, and one of the things that we really focus on is impact investing, and really looking at how we tie impact to returns. And so, to me, the opportunity here is to continue to do the work that we do, to grant make and support capacity building in communities against ideas, but also to continue to use our concessional capital across this entire panel, and perhaps that way as well, to really help support and scale the critical ideas that we need as a planet to combat the changes that we are seeing in climate. And so I am very excited for this guidebook because it helps articulate those opportunities. One of the things we also shared yesterday was a report that we published in partnership with the Boston Consulting Group, which showed that only 16% of flows to climate finance are actually happening. And we need to change that paradigm. And we're very eager and supportive to work with you and other partners to use our capital to help make that happen. So thank you for putting this together. Thank you for helping make sure that people are at the center of this and making sure that it's about just financing. And we look forward to partnering with you and others to make this happen.
Thank you very much. Another important message is integrated philanthropy as well, because and there's a lot of discussion on that happening. So that's a very good question. Demiola, you are one of the loudest and most enthusiastic voices when it comes to energy and sea for all, and you were with us in the guidebook as well. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Minister. First, I wanted to just recognize the tremendous work. You were with us in New York, actually taking guidance from African ministers, which I don't think has been mentioned yet. So what this just financing guidebook really brings is a level of trust as well. And for someone from the continent and working with people in the continent, that if Egypt could do it, we could possibly do it. And I think that's very, very important when a lot of areas that we have in global diplomacy that trust has been lost. I think another critical thing that is very important is the role of energy poverty, and understanding for many of our countries we need more energy, not less, but we have the unique opportunity to make it clean. I was at a Bloomberg session yesterday, and they said last year 0.6% of renewable investments went into Africa. So when we talk about the just part of financing, we really need to think about that figure. And I think this guidebook helps us to give us a template. I really like Mark's idea of case studies to at least encourage almost like how-to guides, what went well, but more importantly, what went bad, so we can learn from that. I think that's what we don't like sharing. What is the lesson learned? How long did things really take? How long did it take to get a response back about that agreement? And we really need to put that together to help improve the process. So again, congratulations again, and we really look forward to working on those case studies with you. Thank you.
In terms of the case studies, the guidebook has 40+ case studies on successful examples, but we do want to add more in terms of how we can move forward. And also, you might have a guidebook on the left by next Let me go next to Joe from OECD. OECD is an institution that has the task of accounting 100 billion and trying to help us make sense of all this work.
Thank you, Minister, and congratulations on what is a fantastic initiative with this guidebook and for hosting this event tonight. We really appreciate the collaboration from you and from your team in particular in the contribution the OECD made to it. So we were honoured to be asked to contribute the governance chapter to this guidebook, and in taking on the challenge, we aim to bring together the vital lessons that we've learned about governance and other aspects of our work, taking that from development effectiveness through to corporate governance. It also builds on the commitments contained in the 2021 OECD DAC Declaration of aligning development assistance with the Paris Agreement. 3 key recommendations emerged from this work. First, the importance of donors providing transparent and consistent flows of climate finance in line with good practices of aid effectiveness. So we're talking about climate finance effectiveness, consistent with that. Second, the value of developing country-owned climate action plans, there's many other things to maximize flows and the effectiveness of international climate finance, including NDCs, national adaptation plans, and sectoral decarbonisation pathways. And third, the establishment of country platforms, providing a useful mechanism for enhancing coordination amongst beneficiary governments, development partners, and private sector, who all, as we've heard, need to come together. So thank you again. The OECD looks forward to working with partners to continue to maximise the flows and effectiveness of climate finance.
Thank you very much, OECD. Joy from IFAD has a comment, and of course adaptation figures in very strongly, so there's also a resilience initiative that is taking place on the books.
Thank you so much, Minister. Such a pleasure and such a privilege for IFAD to be here and for to be part of this fund. So the key thing, and we were really privileged to be also contributors to the Just Financing Guidebook, and thank you very much for your leadership in this. One of the key things that we are positioning the guidebook to do is to put out some innovative ideas. And resilience and adaptation, as you all know, there's been one area where the private sector has done abysmally. In fact, the latest numbers on this are that 1.6% of the overall new and additional climate financing coming from the private sector is towards adaptation. So it's clearly an area that we need to do something about. With resilience credits, what we are doing is we are marrying 3 key ideas. One, the need for impact. So we've got to measure extremely well, and we are bringing the technology that we built within IFAD to bear upon that in terms of measurement. Second, we are bringing finance. IFAD has assembled and has huge experience with assembling finance and bringing in the private sector at the non-sovereign as well as at the sovereign level. And third is the just part. IFAD is also a UN organization, and we focus on redistributing those benefits after the asset class is created, the returns from that to the marginalized and the poor. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Joy. IFAD is our key partner in the food pillar in WAFI, so this is also fantastic. Before we conclude, can Professor Nick Nordstern, we cannot be talking about finance, and you are here. You have been over the years doing the articulation, telling us what needs to be done. Last year in Glasgow, there was a report. This year, Sharm El Sheikh, there's another one where you're digging deeper into what the continent is looking at, and also all of the topics that we've been talking about. Please.
Thank you very much, Rania. I am indeed Nick, so thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this great endeavour of your initiative in making it happen. What Vera and I tried to do at the request of the 2 POP residents was to look at the necessary scale of finance and crucially the composition of that finance, its complementarity with different parts to deliver on Paris. So the scale necessary, all the things we've been talking about for us, is defined by delivery on Paris. So what is necessary for that around climate finance? Well, you have to start with the investment because finance is for investment. So we started by looking at the investments in the energy transition, in adaptation resilience, in loss and damage and natural capital. And we looked at the flows into emerging markets and developing economies. We put China to one side, not because it's unimportant, it doesn't need external finance. From that, we asked how much might be available internally, because investment in most countries is in large measure financed internally, but some countries are better positioned than others, of course. And we came to the conclusion that for delivery on Paris, you needed about 1 trillion external flows by 2030 per annum. So that is the answer to the question. There's lots of detail. Go to the LSE website. You can find it all. Very little hard income. Great friend Franny on my right here down in the capital adequacy framework. Some of it will come from that. Some of it must come from extra paid in capital. Some involve absolutely trivial in relation to what it can do. And then you need this collection which people have mentioned of low-cost or grant finance. Bilateral support, SDRs, voluntary carbon markets, philanthropy, all mentioned here. So we looked at the scale, looked at the composition, recognised that people have emphasised natural capital and some parts of adaptation, private flows. Be some, but they won't be to the same extent as there would be the new generation of renewables. So that's the story, so it's in a sense trying to say, can we understand the scale of the supply side necessary here? Yes, we can, to point of phrase, and what's involved in the different players. This is perfectly possible, guys. Everything that's come on this platform, you have to proceed on all these fronts at the same time. And we can do that. It's very good to see people here in this room, in this conference, who are doing exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One very important aspect that you are in the new paper is debt sustainability. There's a very good section on debt, and this is very timely given what we're seeing with the global backdrop and emerging markets.
That's a tremendous contribution to our China in doing this.
Thank you very much. Well, this concludes the launch. I don't think we did justice to everything in the guidebook. I think we have 12 months to go chapter by chapter and have workshops and have discussions and create the case studies that Mark mentioned. But I think the energy in Sharm El Sheikh is high energy. We're all powered. It's solar, and so it's renewable, and it's clean. And yesterday with Egypt's country platform for WAFI, we wanted to show a practical example of implementation. Today with the guidebook as well. I want to thank all the contributors to the guidebook, all the experts, everyone who has been with us in this journey. A very long process, but consultative process, but very, very inclusive. Thank you very much, and together for implementation.